Jax is joining us, and I will do a little share about Jax there. The uh, image I used, unfortunately, wasn't the greatest quality, but there we go. That's Jax, and we are hoping that Jax can give us some guidance in terms of home education and children with special educational. So I'm going to come back into the Zoom because I'm trying to flip between Zooms and between, oh gosh, where's it gone? Oh, I know where it's gone. It's and the live stream and reading the comments. So I'll stop that share. And there we've got Jax over there. So um Jax, I must say I haven't had a huge amount to do with you, but I know that you have quite a lot of involvement in groups and so on for parents with children with special needs, neurodivergence, this kind of thing. And so I'm going to spotlight you now. And there we go. There's Jax. And Jax can be found there. There's her website, and she's on social media as well, on TikTok too, I found. Um, and if you could just talk a little bit about, sort of what led you to home educate, how did that play in, you have children who've got some learning needs, neurodivergence, and all of that. Just give us a little bit of a story about you and your family and your journey.
Yeah, sure. Hoping you can hear me okay.
Yes, we can hear you just fine.
Always like to check that before we get going.
Definitely.
Um, yeah, I actually chose to home educate from the start, before I knew that any of the family were neurodivergent. In fact, before there was a family, because I learned about home education when I was on a PGCE back in the 90s in Durham. And I found books by John Holt in the university library, and they just lit me up. It was like, oh wow, this is fantastic. It makes so much sense. So when in the early 2000s I had a family, I wanted to home educate from day one. And we did. We found the Muddle Puddle group that was run by Mary Raymond, that was based around a website of the same name. And that was for families who were home educating from the start. So for people with children below compulsory school age, we were already going to groups, getting involved, going on camps. We used to go to Kessingland in the summer. We used to hire a youth hostel in the winter for a week and all go as a big group of families together. And it worked so brilliantly for my kids. And a little bit later, because I was working, we used a Montessori school, flexi schooling, part time. And that was when I began to notice that my children were not developing in quite the same trajectory that other children were. And it took us a little while, but we did eventually get diagnosis, first of all, of autism for all of the children. I now have four. And for myself, I'm autistic. And then more recently, we've discovered that myself and the two younger children, who are now teenagers, we're all ADHD as well as autistic. So we have to flex our learning patterns around all of that bundle of different needs. So sensory needs, routine needs, not routine needs, social anxieties at times. Um, it it's meant that I've built an education individual to each child and to their interests across the years. So my older two are now 25 and 22 and independent. My 25-year-old did use school in year 11 to pick up GCSEs. Wouldn't actually recommend starting school in year 11. That was a little bit intense. She did 5 GCSEs and an AS level, and the 5 GCSEs included photography and doing all of the coursework in a single year. So, I personally wouldn't recommend trying to cram all of it into one year in a school environment.
How many GCSEs did they do in that year, Jax?
5. So
Wow, that
maths,
was from
yeah,
a standing start.
from a standing
Five
start. Yeah,
GCSEs.
from a
Wow.
standing start. And what's more, the English language, she actually took in the November sitting. So
Hmm.
she joined the school in September, and they got a new head of English. And that head of English threw out all of the coursework for all the kids that had been there throughout and went, "You're all doing it in November." So my daughter sat her first exam, her first exam in the November, and walked out with a B. So I didn't think that was too bad, really.
And what I mean, looking at the fact that your children are neurodivergent, and the fact that she went in and she met that challenge head on and got a B in English. What where did she get that success from? What was the foundation that meant that she had success when that happened?
The thing that I've done for all of my kids, and I do it for kids that I mentor or tutor as well,
Mm-hmm.
is I meet them where they are and I
Mm-hmm.
tell them they can do what they want to do. They have to want to do it,
Mm-hmm.
you know. And Alison, my eldest, had decided that she wanted to be able to go to university to do an English degree.
Okay.
So, because that was what she decided she wanted to do, she then tracked back and said, "So that means I'm going to need A levels. So that means I'm going to need GCSEs.
Yep.
So the easiest way to get GCSEs is to be in a school
Yep.
because, yeah, you can do them as a private candidate, but it's hard.
Yep.
It's hard. And if you're not familiar with mark schemes and
Mm-hmm.
how to
Mm-hmm.
practice timings and exams and all that kind of thing, which most of us as parents were not, it's much easier to do that in a school environment. So she decided a school environment would be an easier way of doing it. And she went in, and my eldest is a bit of a force of nature. The way we've worked has always been she's told me what she wants to be able to do, and then it's my job to find a way for her to do it.
Right.
I'm not a teacher, I'm a facilitator.
100%. And
Yeah.
that comes through in everything you're saying about the education, that it's you're a facilitator to your children's child-led
Absolutely.
education. And I have a kind of similar experience in that my daughter, my son never went to school, but my daughter wanted to have quite an academic education. And so when she decided that she was going to do secondary school, the whole of secondary school, and she was going to go to a selective grammar school. So she had to go through the 11 plus process. Very similar in some ways because she'd never sat an exam in her life, etc., etc. And she got in and she went and she had quite a successful school career given COVID and all the other nonsense that went on in the family. And she's off to go and be a civil servant now. But again, it's that facilitating your child to do the thing that they need to do in order to get to where they want to be. And if you are very child focused, then it doesn't matter what your child's needs are. They don't become, I don't know, would you agree with this, that special educational needs don't have the depressing weight in home education that they do if you're in school?
Exactly that. Yeah. One of the problems with our standardized education system is we expect all children to hit the same targets at the same time. So
Which is let me just say that's ironic, isn't it?
yeah,
Because health visitors are taught not to expect all children to walk and talk at the same time. But as soon as you get into school, all of that goes out of the window.
Absolutely. And so we've got all of these sort of standard targets. We've got a national curriculum that says everybody's going to be doing this thing in this year. And it doesn't cater to children's interests. It doesn't cater to children's different abilities. It doesn't cater to their sensory needs. And it sets so many of our kids up for failure.
Yeah.
And instead, if you are doing it yourself from home, you can meet your child where they are. So each of my children learnt to read in a different way at a different time. They all learnt to read, and they all read extremely well. My now 22-year-old, who was the first one to pick up a diagnosis, people were sort of saying to me, "Oh, you know, gonna have a lot of problems." A lot of problems. When that child was 14, he accessed one of these 14 to 16-year-old home ed programs from a local college, and he did his maths and English in 1 year because he was ready for it at that point. We then went and looked around the college because I thought he was going to go into computer programming and coding because that was what he was really interested in. He was also very interested in guitar and playing in a band and in a group with other people. So instead of going to do computer programming, he went to do music performance because he said to me, I can learn computer programming at home. There are resources on the internet. I can do that online whenever I want to. I can't play in a group from home. You know, I can't perform music by myself in my bedroom.
This is just to interject there. Music and team sports are the two things that home education can make a bit difficult, I think. Everything else you can do. Yeah.
It can, yeah. But what we did for that kind of thing was we had access to guitar lessons because while I do play the guitar, I do not play it at a level that any of my children think is acceptable. So we had access to guitar lessons for him, although my daughter is self-taught, my eldest, she's self-taught as a guitarist, as a singer, as a songwriter. So he went and did his level 3 music performance at the age of 15, so a year early, simply on the grounds of meeting the head of music at the college when we were looking around it to see what was on offer, and blew the guy away. And he was, okay, you know, fantastic. Come and have an audition. So long as you can actually play the guitar the way you're telling me you can, we'll take you on. And then my daughter decided she didn't want to do English anymore. Suddenly she wanted to be a songwriter, and I was like, okay, didn't see that one coming. And she went and looked around the college to look at their creative business course. And we bumped into the same guy, and he said, you don't want to be doing that. You don't want to be, you can learn all of that yourself. Come and do the music performance. And, you know, I've met your mother and I've met your brother. And if your mother vouches for you, I'll take you on to the level 4. And I was like, is that usually how these things go?
No, it isn't.
No, it's not. But so she then went on to the level 4 music performance, absolutely blew them away, did that, worked for a year or two. There was that little pandemic thing that, you know, interrupted a few things. She was actually working in, I think it was Homebase at the time, who were a required retailer, so she didn't get to go on furlough. And then she said to me, I want to go to university. I want to do songwriting. And she did. And so in the middle of a pandemic, she went to university, did a songwriting degree, and graduated with first.
So what I'm hearing is a theme here, not just that you're a facilitator and that everything is child-led, but that you were instrumental in creating relationships, and those relationships then led to the trust that led to the college saying it's okay for you to do this. And I think this is where sometimes people who are very new to home education don't understand that this is the way the world works for a lot of us, that by creating those relationships and having those conversations, it opens doors that you weren't visible before.
Yeah, and I mean that's similar to what happened with her when my eldest, when she went into school, because we actually had the conversation with the head of sixth form, who to begin with said that he would take her into sixth form for 3 years, but then decided that wasn't going to work because she didn't have her GCSEs. But because we'd gone up, because we'd had the conversation, because we'd said some of these things have got to be possible. And I see this time and again in the home ed groups where people are going, oh no, schools won't go for that. Schools will sometimes go for it. Colleges will sometimes go for it. You aren't going to know if you don't ask.
Yeah, you have to make the approach, don't you?
You know,
you have to brave it. You have to brave it. I remember when my son, who is now 28, nearly 29, when my son wanted to do GCSEs, that was very funny, you bobbing up and down like that.
I was just trying to get the lighting a bit better because I seem to be very dark and I don't really know why.
Oh, don't worry about it. It's your voice that counts.
Yes.
When my son needed to do GCSEs, we were at pretty much at the pioneering stages of trying to get local schools to accept private candidates. So I had to go and have that conversation. And that conversation meant that I developed a relationship with that exams officer that meant that 20 other people managed to go and do their GCSEs at that school.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, she's moved on and it's now part of a multi-academy trust that won't do private candidates, which is but you know,
that's been a big problem for a lot of people.
And the 14 to 16 college stuff, which seems to be evaporating as well, for no good reason whatsoever. We can't get to the bottom of it, other than they can't be bothered.
I think it's because government are increasing the hoops that courses need to leap through. So it becomes more difficult to take it on. I mean, we're very lucky in Suffolk to have West Suffolk College, which has a very broad range of courses available on a 14 to 16. But that was mainly because the guy who set it up didn't take no for an answer, and he just did things. So the first year where my son was doing the maths and English, they were actually based a lot nearer to us because the college is like 45 miles away, so it's a bit of a hike. But he just, I don't know whether he hired a room or what he did, but he based it in the nearby town, which is like 15 minutes up the road. And I think he broke lots of rules and regulations, but he did it. He was like, no, this will work. And it did work. He got a whole range of kids through their maths and English, either their GCSEs or their functional skills, in a year, and then proved that it was possible. And they started doing more things out of the college. So you need those people.
You do need those mavericks, don't you?
Yeah,
you need those maverick people that are prepared to stick their neck out. And we also need parents that are willing to ask the questions like you asked. And we need all of this to happen. And I think the general trend at the moment, and I don't know where it's going to end, because the offer has got narrower and narrower from the state. You know, the things that are allowed in a school have got narrower and narrower. The choices have got less and less and less. All the 14 to 16 and all the rest of it. You know, we have to hang on to those little bits of diversity that we can, and try and expand them where we can. Because that trend is going to end in disaster.
That's the conversation we need to be having. And with the newer home educators who are coming in, and we're seeing wave after wave of them coming into the home education groups. I mean, I'm admin of the Suffolk group, and the flood we have had this September.
Yeah.
But they come in and they sort of go, what's on? what's happening? Where can I go? And part of what we need people to do is go, if there isn't something that suits you, set it up.
Yeah.
You can do it.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
that's how groups start. They start by a couple of families getting together and clubbing together and hiring a hall, or getting a room in a library, or meeting up at
Those
a house
people,
or a park.
I mean, a lot of
Yeah.
the new to home, we know that more than 50% of new to home education home educators are doing it because school has damaged their child in one way or another. And that's quite new. That's in the last 2 years. It's been that over 50%. And it's really, really tricky because those parents have already, they're battered. They're absolutely battered. They're battered and they're exhausted, all the rest of it. And in addition, the new generation of home educators. I mean, I'm 56 now. You know, I was born before the moon landings, which my girl guides always laugh about. They can't believe that that's possible. That I'm still walking and talking, but you know, when I was brought up in the 1970s, doing your own thing was respected. And the new generation have not grown up in that environment that fostered diversity and celebrated quirkiness. We're now a lot more conformist, and we expect people to be a lot more conformist. And it must be very tricky if you've grown up like that to start to buck the trend. It's almost like you have to de-school yourself, you have to de-society yourself, don't you?
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly what I've been trying to get people to do. One of the things that I offered off of my website over this summer was a little download, a free download that was called Use the Summer to De-School Yourself. You know, de-school yourself. It's
Yeah.
not about your kids. You know,
Yeah.
it's not actually the kids that we need to de-school at this point. It's the parents and the families, because we have to give that power back to the parents to then be able to facilitate for their children.
And I think we need to acknowledge that power is not a burden. Getting that power is actually a very freeing, liberating experience. Once you realise that there are options and you can do things and you can educate your own children and you can do all of these things, it's actually really, really liberating, and you'll feel a lot lighter and all the rest of it. So I think we all need to encourage a lot of the parents out there to go down this journey and to start to rediscover themselves and their talents and their opportunities. And if we pull together as a community to do that, I see a lot of hope in the future.
Yeah, but like I say, it's the parents that we've got to help.
Yep.
Parents can help their kids, but only when we've supported them. And
I agree.
That's what I'm targeting doing. And I am targeting the neurodivergent families because that's what I know, that's what I live, that's what I am. But they are overrepresented in those families coming out of school because our kids don't squish very easily into boxes. We don't fit into routines. We don't take well to being told what to do. So we have to help them to then support their children. And it doesn't matter if your child isn't reading at the age that school says that they're going to. It doesn't matter if they're not doing the maths that somebody says they ought to be able to do at that age. It doesn't matter if they don't learn their times tables. I still, at the grand old age of 53, do not know all of my times tables.
Me neither.
I worked as a computer programmer at a very large banking institution. You know, there are ways around all of these things. And there are tools that we can use. We've got to give the power back to the families.
I totally agree. I think that's the strong message.
Yes,
I think that
so.
we need to get forward.
I agree.
Thank you.
And just something that you know, I know people often say, oh, you know, it wasn't like this, you know, when I was at school. But I actually have a theory about that. I think that part of the problem is exacerbated by the early starting age.
Yeah. Oh, I agree.
So children don't have the opportunity to form an emotional, secure attachment and foundation. And then I think the way school is structured, the way they push certain things and they want it by this age and what they actually do is they create a learning barrier, which
Yes.
may then manifest as a learning need, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah, I
that
would
child
agree.
has now
Yeah.
developed something that wasn't possibly there before, but they've developed it in reaction to this environment and the tone of voice of the teacher or the goal drivenness and all of that. And so you then have a great big barrier that you're not going to easily get rid of. And my daughter was in school, and the year we took her out was because she was saying she was stupid. And it took me a year to get her to stop guessing maths answers. I mean, I was still trying to do the structured thing then, as you do, but
Yeah. Yeah, we
because
all go through that.
it hadn't passed her, somehow it hadn't she hadn't figured out that, oh, there's a method, and if I follow the method, the answer will be right. She just thought if you put your hand up and you say something and it's right, you're clever, and if you say the wrong thing, you're stupid. But she had no idea that there was a way to find the answer. But that's the whole thing. Is what I'm saying is that you've got a system that is, some children are not, they simply are not ready for that system. The system's not ready for them and cannot support them because they're different. Their brains are different. They maturing at different ages, all of these things,
Yeah. The one system that we know, the one education system that we know doesn't work is the one that we've got in this country.
Oh, whoop, whoop.
That's the one thing that you can pretty much guarantee doesn't work. And part of it is it's designed not to work. Naomi was talking this morning about it being built in that a proportion of children have to fail because that's how GCSEs are set up. But there are so many different ways of doing it that do work. A Montessori, more hands-on approach that allows every child to follow their interests and develop in a particular area when they're ready to.
Yeah.
But it's individual.
Yeah.
All of these things that are individual, that are built around the child's needs, the child's interests, those are the things that work. And if schools were more like resource centres, so that you could drop in, you could go, right, I'm ready to do my GCSE maths now. I'll book into this batch of lessons and I'll sit the exam then. If that's what schools were like, if they were kind of libraries of resources and the resources included teachers as well as books and computers and hands-on stuff, kids would be doing better. But we wouldn't have them all in a building out of the way so the parents could be in work all the time. And what would our society and system actually look like at that point?
Yes, and sadly, no government that we've had at any point has considered that sort of out of the box thinking. And it is very concerning because we do feel like we aren't heard. And I think the beauty of home education is that you don't you can know their SEND needs, but because you're doing everything with your children as individuals and meeting them where they're at, it doesn't really. I don't know if it was the same for you, but for me, I have a son who was diagnosed as an adult with ADHD because we just did things for him that worked for him, and we adjusted for him without really even thinking about it or seeing it as any kind of a problem. And I think the thing is that we don't. This one size fits all is just that approach. It doesn't belong anywhere near children.
It really doesn't. It really doesn't. And it damages children, it damages family, and it damages society.
It does, because it's also
you've automatically set up this confrontation where some people aren't good enough. And if they're not good enough with the qualifications, they can't then get the employment. And if they can't get the employment, what's the alternative for them?
Well, there's a long-term cost. They might save money now, but they're going to pay for it down the line in terms of possibly benefits and extra training or suicides or jail,
mental health
you know,
issues,
all of
criminal
that.
justice issues, you know, all of
Yeah.
these things are increased bills. But
Yeah.
because we've got a system that splits things out into different pots and goes, this is the bit we're going to spend on education, we're saving money on education, and we'll ignore the fact that we then have to pick up all the broken pieces over there. That's a different budget, so we don't
Yeah.
need to worry about that.
And they're just going to put a mental health professional in every school, so that should fix all of that, don't you
That'll
think?
fix
And
everything.
free breakfast clubs. I think that should help a lot. What do you think?
Oh yeah, that'll make all the difference to my kids, that I cannot get out of bed before 10 o'clock on a morning.
Yeah.
Free breakfast.
So Jax, we're going to move on to Alice soon, but just if you want to just tell people, you know, if they want to chat to you, you've got your contact details there, right?
Yeah. The website is there. It's been established for 20 years, liveotherwise.co.uk. It's got a blog of everything that we've done throughout home education, so our stories right the way through. You can find me across pretty much all social media, although the Twitter is more of a
You're also
handle,
active on
because we
some
don't
groups.
do that anymore.
You're also there. Do you want to mention any Facebook groups that are that people might want to join if they're dealing with SEN needs?
There is there's an Autistic UK parents group that I'm an admin of. Autistic UK Home Education, I think it's called. So you can find that one. There is a little fledgling group based off of my Facebook page for neurodivergent home educators, and if people want to join it, then I'll actually start doing things in it.
Yeah, can I just
yeah.
say, do join those. There are some really bad autism support groups on
Oh,
Facebook.
there are. Oh, there
In
are.
particular, the Autism Parents Support Group, which is it seems to be full of Americans who use ABA techniques for at least 30 hours a week on some of their children.
We don't do that.
No, don't do that. So do be really choosy about where you go.
Yeah.
Stick to the UK. Definitely stick to the UK, because in the UK, I think we've got, for those people who work in autism, and I'm one of them, I think we have a better handle on it than
Yeah.
other parts of the world. I'm
Yeah,
not
very
saying
much so.
we're perfect. I'm not saying the services are all there, but our understanding is far superior to the understanding in, for example, North America, generally speaking. So be really choosy about where you go for your advice.
Yeah,
Yeah.
really,
So,
really good, sensible stuff there, Alison.
and Jax, I think you were
yeah,
watching the live stream as well on YouTube. So if you want to go and add any of your
I will
links
do
in there as well.
exactly that, and I'll go
Thank
and
you so
leap
much.
back into the comments.
Yeah, thanks so much for joining us. But